Hello everybody, welcome to Ascari at Home. My name is John Sinopoli. I'm the executive chef and co-owner of the Ascari Hospitality Group. We're so excited to have you here tonight for our Chianti Classico virtual dinner. We're gonna bring you through the hills of the Tuscan countryside as much as possible as it is right now in these times, with some beautiful traditional flavors on the plate, as well as some amazing Chianti Classico wines. We're very excited to have an in-depth discussion with our resident expert and ambassador to Chianti Classico, Michael Goodell. He's going to be having a chat with us about all the intricacies and traditions of Chianti Classico winemaking. First though, we're going to take a look at what's inside your food box, and we're going to get in the kitchen, and I'm going to show you how to put together this restaurant quality meal in your own home. Let's get started. Okay, here we are with all the ingredients from your box. I'm gonna walk you through everything so you know what it's for. We've labeled everything, but just in case, we've got here our first course. Our appetizer is a ribollita crostone. So basically we're talking about a large toast. Ribollita is a classic Tuscan soup made with day-old bread, white beans, sofrito, and Tuscan black kale, cavolo. We've got some of that black kale here that we've stewed in sofrito. We've got a beautiful white bean mash. And then instead of day-old stale bread in a soup, we've turned this dish into a toast. So we've olive oil fried some gorgeous sourdough bread. And we're gonna put that all together with some Parmigiano Reggiano on top, some olive oil. Basically a classic flavor from Tuscany reimagined. For the main course, we have our wild boar ragu with our house-made tagliatelle pasta. This is an Ascari handmade egg noodle. And the wild boar ragu is basically, again, sofrito, white wine, seared wild boar shoulder, braised long and slow with rosemary, sage, and tomato. And then to garnish, we have some beautiful salt-cured olives and some fried sage. We're gonna toss those in with the pasta to finish off the dish with a little bit of sharp, bright salt. It's gonna be delicious. For dessert, we've got an Italian classic, bomboloni. It's a yeast-risen fried donut, and we filled it with an orange and sambuca rice custard. This is delicious, it's sweet, it's beautiful. It's not gonna go well with the Chianti Classico, but these two will. These two dishes are gonna go great, and you're gonna see with both the richness in this and the earthiness in the crostone, that really Chianti Classico and the acidity and structure in it is the perfect food wine with almost no matter what you're eating. So let's get to it. We're gonna go in the kitchen. I'm gonna show you how to put it all together. Welcome to the kitchen here at Ascari King Street. We're gonna walk you through your appetizer course. We've got our ribollita crostone. So the first thing you're gonna do is take your package of Tuscan kale and Savoy cabbage and your package of white bean puree labeled ribollita, and we're gonna pop that in some simmering water. Okay, the water needs to be hot and steaming, but not necessarily boiling. And then we're gonna take these two pieces of olive oil fried sourdough toast, and we're gonna pop them in the oven. The oven just needs to be at 350 degrees. We're just getting it warm, getting it crispy, activating that olive oil. We have our grated Parmigiano cheese and our olive oil ready for dressing. While those are in the oven, I just want to remind you that your bomboloni desserts should have been in the fridge overnight, but you should remove them from the fridge about an hour before you eat, just so they can come to room temperature. It's going to be much more enjoyable that way. I just wanted to talk too about the thinking of this first course. I mean, for me, when I think about Tuscany and I think about classic dishes, ribollita is one of the first things that comes to mind. It's really all about, you know, the Tuscan love for their bread, whether you like their unsalted bread or not. Personally, I'm not a fan, but I love that they use the bread in everything. Nothing goes to waste. And it's really a dish, ribollita means reboiled, and it's yesterday's beans, yesterday's bread, a little bit of cabbage and kale, and always sofrito and olive oil. And it's such a beautiful flavor combination. We reimagined it for you today because I think even though the weather's a little chillier, nobody wants a big hot bowl of soup right now. So we've got a beautiful sourdough bread that we've toasted in olive oil. It is properly salted and seasoned, don't worry. And then we've taken the soup base of sofrito and white beans, pureed it a little bit, but left some of the beans chunky in there. That's gonna be our spread. And then a little bit of the sofrito braised Tuscan kale, the cavolo. That's a gorgeous, looks like a palm leaf. It's a beautiful plant. And that's gonna be strewn across the toast, and we're gonna finish with some Parmigiano and some olive oil. Everything in Tuscany gets finished with olive oil. So now that our stuff is hot, I'm gonna go grab it out of the water. So it doesn't take long to heat up. The bags, once you're out of the water, they shouldn't be that hot to handle. I'm just gonna take a pair of scissors. I'm gonna empty my cabbage and kale mixture with sofrito oil into my bowl. And then in a slightly larger bowl, I'm going to empty my white bean puree, which is now nice and hot. It really only takes a few minutes in the hot water to get hot all the way through the middle. There we go. And again, the toast should be all warm through and hot, but it doesn't have to be like piping hot. You're not recooking anything. Okay, and now that these are ready for me to plate, a spoon in each, I'm gonna grab my toast. Okay. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is spread our white bean puree very generously over each piece of toast. You can see how we pureed some of it, but left a lot of the beans whole. I love that combination of texture. For me, white beans are supposed to be creamy through the middle, but still maintain their integrity as a bean. And then we have our beautiful Tuscan kale and Savoy cabbage mixture that we've braised gently in sofrito. And this is gonna get arranged on top. Look at that, super bright, earthy flavors. I think that whatever wine you've chosen to drink with this as the appetizer, the richness of the sofrito and the kale and the creaminess of those beans is going to go beautifully with the acidity that you always find in a great Chianti Classico wine. Okay, now we're going to move this over to the plate, but before we're just going to cut it in half so it's a little easier to eat. So I'm just going to cut this on a little bit of a bias, nice and clean. There we go, perfect. I'm gonna set my plates out. Again, the best part about this is that it's simple cooking, very, very traditional. With Tuscan cooking, it's all about layering flavors, and there's not a lot of fancy stuff to hide behind ever. Beautiful, and once it's on the plate here, we're gonna finish with a little bit of this olive oil. So I'm just going to take a spoon and drizzle a few drops on top of each one. Shouldn't require any extra seasoning. And of course, we're going to finish each toast with a generous pinch of freshly grated Parmigiano Reggiano. Look at that, beautiful. Get it all out there, no sense wasting. And there you go. You can pick it up with your hands. You can eat it with a knife and fork, however you like. Here is your first course, Ribollita Crostone. Here we are at the stove in the kitchen at Ascari King Street again. We're gonna walk you through our tagliatelle al ragu. So the ragu today is wild boar ragu. Of course, wild boar is famous in Tuscany because these wild boar ravage the countryside and there's famous hunts for them, and it's just a really beautiful gamey meat. The one we get here is probably a little less gamey because they're raised on a range, but still real delicious meat, especially for stewing in a ragu. So when we cook pasta, the first thing we need, of course, is a big pot of boiling water. We have 2 portions of fresh tagliatelle that we made by hand here at Ascari for you. And I want to talk about seasoning your water. I want to make sure everyone understands how salty your pasta water needs to be. Now, normally when you're making a dried pasta that you buy in the store, that pasta requires the water to taste like seawater to be fully seasoned. With this, we actually need the water to taste like seawater plus, I say. Really salty, because this pasta only takes about 1.5 to 2 minutes to cook. Now, we're not even gonna time it. I'm just gonna show you when it's ready. It's gonna look tender, it's gonna look great. It doesn't take long at all. But because it doesn't take a long time, you need the water to be even more seasoned to absorb that while it's in there. And then we're just gonna toss it right in the pan and get ready. So I'm gonna take my trusty box of kosher salt, and I'm gonna give it a count of 1, 2, 3, and that is how much salt I need for a pot of water about that big. I put in about 1/4 cup, depending on how the size of your pot at home. I always say the bigger the pot, the better when you're cooking pasta. You don't want the temperature of the water to go down at all. So next, we're gonna open up this beautiful ragu, and we're gonna get it in the pan and start getting hot. So let's make sure we get all of that out. Just gonna squeeze the bag really well. We don't wanna waste anything. You can fold it over. Perfect. Everything out of the bag, wonderful. And then we're gonna throw in these salt-cured olives that we provided as well. We didn't put them in the sauce because they tend to make the sauce a little bit too salty if it stews a long time. So I just like to throw it in at the end to finish. Turn the heat on full. You see it's a little bit liquidy, but that's okay. That's going to evaporate as we warm up the sauce. And now that our sauce is getting hot, we're gonna get our pasta in the water. So it's really important when you drop pasta in the water that you don't touch it for the first couple seconds, because the pasta noodles are not quite pliable and they will break. So I'm gonna drop 1, and I'm gonna loosen it a little bit as I drop. 2, you wanna keep those noodles as whole as possible. I'm just gonna let it sit for a minute before I stir. Don't be too quick on the draw to stir before it starts to cook a little bit, all right? You really wanna make sure that your heat is at full blast so that the recovery time is quick, that it doesn't stop boiling for very long. And then once it's been in there and you can tell it's gotten a little bit soft, now's the time to get a pair of tongs and pull it out. We use a basket so I can pull it right out. You can just go right in the pot and use a colander in the sink as well. I'm gonna turn my sauce down now to a simmer now that it's boiling. Oh my God, I can smell the sauce. Wait till you guys smell this sauce in your pan. It's so delicious. Smells so good. We've started this by searing the meat. Then we added a whole bunch of sofrito. You've heard me say the word sofrito a lot today. In Italian cooking, especially Tuscan cooking, sofrito is the key flavor base. It's basically carrot, celery, onion that's been chopped up very, very fine, not buzzed up with a machine, but chopped with a hand. And then we boil that in olive oil, like a bath of olive oil. We put fresh bay leaves. Sometimes you can put the rind of a lemon in there, and you let that go until all 3 vegetables are indistinguishable. So the carrot, the celery, and the onion should all look gray. You shouldn't be able to see the orange of the carrot anymore. That creates such a rich, deep flavor base for all of these braises, whether it be your slow-cooked white beans or your wild boar ragu. So now my ragu is getting hot. It's looking good. My pasta is, I think, actually just about cooked. I'm going to pull some out and stretch. You see how orange it is? We use beautiful Conestoga eggs to make our pasta. So you can see the color of our noodle is really, really bright. Just gonna taste. Ooh, it's hot. That is perfect. It's cooked. There's just a little bit of bite left. We're gonna get it into our hot sauce now. I'm gonna drain the water. I don't want too much extra water here. I can always add a little bit of pasta water back into my pan if it gets a little bit too tight. Look at that, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, here we go, a little toss. You can use your tongs. The flip is better because it tends not to break the noodle quite as much. I'm gonna turn off my heat. And I am really happy, you can see there, with how the pasta has absorbed all the sauce. There's no more loose liquid. Don't forget, pasta sauce is a condiment for the noodle. You don't have sauce with pasta on it. You have a pasta with a little bit of sauce on it. So here we are. We've got our olives, our wild boar ragu. Everything's looking tender, smelling amazing. It's ready to go to the plate. So let's walk over and put this on the plate. All right, we're ready to put our pasta on the plate. So I'm just gonna take about half of this portion, give it a twist. You don't have to be so fancy at home, but we're gonna give it a twist, get it onto the plate. There we go. And release. Okay, I'm gonna put a few pieces of meat ragu there before I top that up. I'm gonna do the same on the other plate. Perfect. A twist. Now again, if you found your sauce to be a little bit too tight, reserve some of that pasta water to loosen up your plate. Okay, beautiful. A little more on top here and here as well. And then I'm gonna grab my spoon and we're gonna put all the rest of this beautiful ragu on top. Perfect. Look at that, gorgeous. And those salt cured olives are gonna add that little bit of briny, salty, fresh bite. As you can see, we didn't skimp on the wild boar in the ragu. We like to be generous. It is, after all, a pasta main course. Beautiful. And the last thing we're going to do to finish this off nicely is to garnish with some of the fried sage we provided you. Fried sage is a crucial part of Tuscan eating. They love it. It's an appetizer in and of itself sometimes. Few pieces on each one. Look at that. There you have it. Our wild boar ragu with handmade tagliatelle, salt cured olives, and fresh sage. Guys, enjoy the dinner. Can't wait for our conversation with Michael Goodell tonight. Don't forget, you've also got your bombolone with sambuca rice custard. It's gonna be brilliant. Don't forget to pull that out of the fridge about an hour before you eat it. We'll see you at the live chat. Have a great night.